Hello friends, I'm going to speak to you today about the social problems of divorce and cohabitation. But before I talk about that, I would like to just tell you a little story. In the year of 1971, a young soldier in the United States Army was invited to visit a Baptist church. He was stationed in the South, which, if most of you know about the United States, the South is the Bible Belt where there's a lot of churches. So he attended a Baptist church one Sunday, and he especially noticed the piano player. She was a beautiful girl, and she had blue eyes and red hair, and I think he decided that he wanted to meet her and get to know her. So eventually, her family had him for dinner because the soldiers were invited to the church family's homes for dinner. And through that, he got to know her, and then in September of 1971, he married that girl, who was at the time 20 years old, and he was 22. And today, they've been married 42 years, and they have 10 children, and they also have 13 grandchildren. And so, I'm talking about my mom and dad. And I grew up in a home where I felt stable and secure because my parents stayed together. They lived together. And we had brothers and sisters. So it was always, to me, home and family was a good memory. And though I would like to also tell you another story now about someone that's very special to me. And when they were young, when they were just 8 years old, they would cry often. And the reason they cried because the dad would not come home. They didn't know where Daddy went. And they would say, "Mom, where's my dad? I want to see my dad." And he never was there anymore. And in that particular home and situation, the father and the mother needed to separate and divorce. And sometimes it is legitimate and it is legal for people to divorce. And the father happened to drink a lot, and he had beat the mother, and eventually he raped her in front of even the 8-year-old's little boy. And that little boy had to see that, and that's in his memory, which was very traumatic for a small child, of course. And so the home became more peaceful when the parents separated, of course, and the mother was left with 4 sons to raise alone, which was a very difficult life. And many times, divorce is caused because of poverty. People that have lived in poverty, maybe they're uneducated, maybe they didn't have a good example in their parents. Maybe their parents divorced. And so there's a majority of the problem, especially in the United States, is among minority peoples and African American peoples. But 50% of all first marriages end in divorce in the United States. I imagine there's other statistics here in Poland, but I don't have the actual statistics. And 48% of all first births are done outside of marriage. So a lot of people are living together, cohabiting, as if they were a married couple, but they actually do not want the commitment and responsibilities of marriage. And many young people, when they're just finished school, they decide, you know, we want to have a baby or we want to be together. And so they end up cohabiting, or they end up creating a child. But a lot of times that leaves a single mother who lives on welfare, which means the government has to help her with funds so she can raise the child and survive. Because a lot of times the father is not responsible or old enough to decide how to take care of his family. And so there's many statistics, of course, that we could talk about. But you know, what about this problem? It's obviously, in today's world, it's a very large problem. Many times, there was a period of time from the 70s days that was called the Divorce Revolution. And during that time, there was probably, there was a huge amount of divorces compared to the 1960s, for example. And so things started to change in society. And so I believe that some second marriages, usually 60% of second marriages end in divorce, and 70% of third marriages end in divorce. So it just goes on from there. People seem to have a hard time, you know, finding that stability or finding that person they feel secure with. And sometimes, like I mentioned, people may have reasons to divorce. I'm not saying that this is not always legitimate. But the opposite of that, of course, is marriage. And all of us here love marriage because we are married. And I've been married for 14 years to my husband here. And we believe strongly in marriage. It's a Christian institution. God created marriage. And, I was reading a book by Dr. Scott Halsman. He wrote a book called The Secrets of Happily Married Men. And he said, the world would be so much more manageable if women would just see the world the way men do. Okay, that's kind of funny, but men and women think differently. And, our family is our closest neighbor. So just doing the golden rule in our household, that helps a lot. And, of course, we want to value marriage, and that would be very important to show the world that we value our marriage, that we want to be faithful to our partners, to have fidelity in our marriage, and also to have commitment. Of course, when we say our wedding vows, it says, at least for what I said when I got married, for better or for worse. Sometimes things may not look as perfect as we would like, or sometimes we may not think we're content with this person or something, but we made a commitment. And we also say for richer or poorer, even if there's poverty or there's problems, that doesn't give us excuses, of course, to decide there's no more marriage, because we made a commitment. And so this would be a way that we could combat some of these social issues if we could all just desire to have a strong marriage, to show the world that we value marriage. And then, of course, encourage young people, encourage others, try to teach people by example. And Thomas Jefferson said a really nice statement one time. He said, the happiest moments of my life have been the few which I have passed at home in the bosom of my family. And family is important, and it's the strength of strong societies. We need marriages, we need families. It's the only way to have a good society.